Something there is that doesn't love a wall. To whom is he saying this? To his neighbor as well as to the readers. Yes, as well as to the readers. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. That wants it down means that doesn't want the wall, that wants the wall to be broken or demolished. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I wanted to tell him, look, my dear neighbor, the invisible spirits around us don't want the wall. Because if I tell him the groundswell, the frozen earth doesn't like the wall, he will say good fences make good neighbors. And if I say that the hunters don't like the wall, still he would say good fences make good neighbors. The hunters don't come every day. Occasionally they come, and if they disturb the wall, we can build it because good fences make good neighbors. He's not going to be convinced so easily that we don't need a wall. So now I'll try and tell him the invisible mischievous spirits, fairies, don't want the wall. Maybe he will be convinced with this fanciful idea. But it's not elves exactly, and I would rather he said it for himself. He is not going to agree to that, feels the poet. I hope he changes his mind and tells himself that a wall is not required. Why do I have to keep finding reasons to tell him that a wall is not required? Why can't he say it to himself? Is the poet's plea. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. So until now the poet was also a part of, lifting the boulders and putting them back. Has the poet stopped that activity here? I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand. So who is continuing with the activity of mending the wall now?
Neighbor.
Only the neighbor. The poet has stopped doing it. So therefore he says, I see him there bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like this, holding the stones firmly, walking like an old stone savage armed, like a caveman with the stones as if they are his weapons, not listening to anyone, just going about his job. That's how the poet looks at the neighbor. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me. Oh, this neighbor. He moves in darkness. When will he be enlightened? When will he understand what is in my mind or what is in my heart, or how he could think in a different way? Not of woods only and the shade of trees. The darkness is not because of the woods or the forest or the dense branches of the trees. He will not go behind his father's saying. I know my neighbor, very traditional, conservative in thinking, just believes what his father told him. He believes in his father's saying. And he likes having thought of it so well. Not only did his father teach him well, but he also has thought about it well, and it's very, very difficult to change his mind. What does he say again? Good fences make good neighbors. So, you find that the poet concludes with the statement of the neighbor, good fences make good neighbors. To some extent, we feel that the poet has changed his mind. The poet who began saying something there is that doesn't love a wall and was finding reasons for not having the wall, finally perhaps is veered to his neighbor's idea that good fences are required, walls are required in order to maintain good neighborly relations.
The poet made a compromise.
Will you call it a compromise? Or will you say that, will you think of it this way? Here is a simple situation in life between two neighbors who don't fight with each other, yet they are doing the same thing, building the wall, mending the wall. After some time, of course, the poet stops. But how does the poem end? Good fences make good neighbors, with the thinking of the neighbor. From a simple situation, if we could translate the thoughts of the poet into solutions for international problems, I think Robert Frost would have felt very happy if that kind of a change could be brought about in society by reading this poem. Okay, so from a very simple situation in life, that of having a wall between two neighbors, where the neighbor has a strong conviction that the wall should be there because he reiterates in the poem, good fences make good neighbors. From that viewpoint, we have another viewpoint of the narrator or the poet, who keeps on telling us something there is that doesn't love a wall, which is somewhat the opposite view. And he tries to find reasons. He talks about the frozen earth, the dampness, which causes the disturbance of the shape of the wall. Then he talks about the hunters who leap over the walls on their horsebacks. And then he talks about the elves in the spring season, the invisible forces in nature which don't like the walls. Tries to make the neighbor and the reader turn to his point of view by saying that there are so many things which don't love a wall, and even stops in the mending of the wall after some time, and quite in a very distant objective way comments upon the way his neighbor is bringing the stones, picking them up by the top and walking like a savage, uncivilized person, as if these stones were the weapons. I mean, you find it to be a very critical comment by the poet. He even goes to the extent of saying that he moves in darkness, some kind of ignorance. And he says also clearly that it's not of woods and the shade of trees. The darkness is not created by nature, but the darkness perhaps about his thinking like good fences make good neighbors. And then you find the compromise coming. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He says again, good fences make good neighbors. You find the poem ending with a mark of respect towards the neighbor's ideas. He will not go behind his father's saying. That is, he will not give up what his father taught him, and he likes having thought of it so well. Look at the word, simple words he uses. Likes well. Likes having thought of it so well. And so you find that there is a very strong, respectable, neighborly relationship between the two. From this simple situation in life, if we could carry it and take it to larger situations in the world, say the problems between neighboring countries, could be the wall. And if we learn to have a good wall or a good fence, perhaps we would have good neighborly relations. We could exist peacefully. We could live with greater understanding and cooperation. May be the idea of the poet. I would just leave the poem the rest of the time, a few minutes time, for you to discuss whether you would like to take the point of view that there should be no walls or good fences make good neighbors. I would like you to respond to that.
Here, narrator examines the ideas and thinking of the neighbor.
Okay.
The neighbor is very firm and bold. That
yes. Neighbor is very firm and bold, yes. And the poet wants to examine how firm and bold he is.
Then he narrates about the neighbors.
Yes.
When he's coming with the
he
bricks.
almost resorts to offense, you know. The poet says he's like a savage.
He's like a savage. Yes.
With arms in his hand, and he's in darkness. These are all a little offending. He's ignorant. He looks like an uncivilized man. This is what the poet is saying.
It indicates a good manner and attitude of the poet.
Okay.
You know, making a good fences, or really maintaining a good relationship.
Good relationships. Okay.
Definitely the poet can make good neighbors wherever he goes.
Okay. Definitely the poet will be able to make himself a good neighbor wherever he goes.
He said one thing, that good fences make good neighbors at the end, because he told in a clear way, he told cleverly, because as his neighbor is uncivilized and is not going to improve, he thought that he must be away from him by constructing that wall. It is also good for him.
Okay. What about you, Ramesh?
Good fences make a good neighbors. Maybe I think give respect and take respect.
Okay. Put in very simple terms, give respect and take respect, which is very much required in our day-to-day lives.
Firstly, the poet not accept
Yes.
good friends make not good neighbors.
Okay.
But also some reasons.
Yeah. Okay.
Lastly, accept to good friends make.
Okay. So you feel that the poet accepts his neighbor's view that good fences make good neighbors, which is a mark of give respect and take respect. And the poet will be able to be a good neighbor wherever he goes.
The poet creates positive energy right from beginning to ending.
Yes.
That's what it makes a good neighbor in him.
Okay. So he exudes a lot of positive energy, and that's the reason also why he's able to accept his neighbor's point of view. He's not adamant about his own view. And that kind of flexibility in our thinking is required if we have to coexist peacefully. Yes, that's a good point. Okay, I'll ask you just a few questions which are very simple, and I don't want you to go to the poem or read the lines, but maybe just out of your memory, because we just finished the explanation and understanding of the poem, you will be able to answer these simple comprehension questions. How many kinds of animals are mentioned in the poem?
Rabbits and dogs.
Rabbits and dogs
And
cows, right. Three animals. To what does the poet liken the stones and boulders? What is the comparison he brings in? The stones and the boulders, how do they look?
They are irregular in shape.
Yes, but what is the word that the poet uses?
They are like snowballs
Balls.
and loaves of bread.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He doesn't use the word bread, but loaves refers to bread, rectangular and long. So the boulders and stones look like loaves and balls. What does he mean by walling in or walling out?
Letting the outsider coming in. It is called walling in.
Okay.
Going.
Okay, that's a good explanation. Letting the outsider come in, that's walling in. What is walling out?
Keeping the particulars out of the line.
Yeah, keeping something out of your space. Keeping something in your space, walling in. Keeping something out of your space, that is walling out. Do you think we need to do this, walling in and walling out?
We can do this to some extent to be safe.
Okay. Only for safety? Okay. Suppose the neighbor is not too good, then we need to really be very careful about what we are walling in and what we are walling out. Okay. So if your neighbor is not good, then you are walling out help for him. Yeah?
Definitely.
Definitely. And if your neighbor is good, you are walling in help for him.
Yes.
Shall we understand it that way? Yes. What are the three somethings that don't love a wall in the poem? What are the three somethings?
The wet surface in the earth,
Okay.
damp
earth.
damp
Yes.
earth, ideas of the poet and narrator.
Okay, the ideas of the poet and
but coming to
narrator.
the last,
And there's one more in between.
It's the hunter who
the
leaps.
hunters who leap across over the walls on their horsebacks, right? So it's nature, the damp earth, then the hunters, and then the thoughts of the poet. I would like you to comment on the lines, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness as it seems to me.
Here, narrator describes the attitude of the neighbor. He is very firm in his opinion.
Okay.
He is very bold.
Yeah.
He don't want to go with any more ideas. He just want to carry on with the work.
Okay.
And
What is the work there?
adjusting, repairing the wall,
Okay. What's the title of the poem?
melting wall.
Mending wall. Yeah. So he wants to just go on with his work. And anything else?
The poet is just not fixed. The neighbor is just not flexible,
Okay.
and he has his own thought,
Okay.
and nothing can move him.
Okay.
That's the narrator can include the neighbor in his thoughts,
Okay.
but the neighbor has no place for the narrator. That's
Okay.
what.
Okay. I mean, that's a valid point. The neighbor has no place for the narrator. But still, when when the poet goes and calls him from beyond the hill, the neighbor comes. The neighbor listens to him and comes. Would you say that the neighbor doesn't have place for the poet? Or is it just because it's good that the neighbor has called him for this job and he believes in it and therefore he has come?
In the middle of the poem, the poet tried well to scrutinize the ideas, the attitude of the neighbor.
Okay.
At last, he is confirmed with this.
Okay. The
idea
poet is confirmed with the neighbor's opinion.
Opinion to build
Fences.
The
Yes.
narrator happens to be more inspiring than the neighbor.
Okay. You feel that the narrator is more inspiring than the neighbor. That means you subscribe to the view that there should be no walls?
Definitely.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the class who feels there should be no walls?
No wall, ma'am.
We should have a wall.
No wall.
No walls. What about you?
Definitely, we should have that wall between
neighbors.
Yeah.
Now see, the majority here doesn't want walls. Only you are saying we should have walls. So you are the neighbor. They are all the poets. Okay. So is there any clash between you? There is a majority here and you are standing alone for that opinion. Do you feel that there is any clash of interest? Do you feel you can still coexist in spite of the fact that majority says there should be no walls and only you are saying that there should be a wall?
Yeah. Certainly, here no one is wrong. The poet is not wrong and the neighbor is
That's a
neither.
good statement. No one is wrong. Yes.
It's a good idea by the neighbor
Okay.
to have a wall between both of them.
Yes.
Definitely the good fences.
Make good neighbors. Ultimately, I mean, we could perhaps bring in that line that Ramesh was saying, give respect and take respect. Yeah. What are the parts of the body mentioned to build the wall? What happens to fingers? Yes. Hands and fingers. What are the two seasons that are mentioned in the poem?
Winter.
Winter and spring. Okay. There are some homonyms in this poem. Homonyms are words which are spelt in the same way and pronounced in the same way, but they have different meanings. A pair of homonyms means the same word, like for example, ruler, R-U-L-E-R. Ruler. Ruler could mean a king, an emperor. Ruler could also mean a scale. So that's a pair of homonyms. And you will find a lot of homonyms in this poem. Like for example, swell. Swell is a word which has got two meanings. Generally homonyms function as nouns and as verbs also. When you use the word swell as a homonym in the noun form, it means a sudden increase. Swell also means causing sudden increase. Okay, the verb form causing sudden increase. Then you have the word stone. Stone as a noun is an object. Stone as a verb, he was stoned to death. People stoned him. There is another word, spring. Spring as a noun could mean the name of a season. Spring also could mean a part. Springs also could mean jets of water. Okay? Then balance, there is another word, balance. Balance as a noun, you know, where you try to balance something with a weight and some object on the other side. That is balance. Balance as a verb, when you are cycling, you have to learn to balance. So, balancing. Then well. Well as a noun is, you know, a structure that you would find where you will have water at some depth. Then well also means he is well as an adverb. It means fine, in good health, he is fit. So, these are some homonyms in the poem which make us understand sometimes how poets are able to use simple words. Really, the poet hasn't used any difficult words. Maybe if at all there is a difficult, one or two difficult words, I would say groundswell is one, and you have understood the meaning of it. The literal swelling of the ground because of the dampness of the earth, and the other meaning is the sudden increase in the number of people who have an opinion over an issue. Abreast is another word, difficult perhaps, that is walking side by side. Yelping, yelping means crying, crying dogs. Then is there any other word? Orchard, he had asked Aditya. That's a big garden, a plot of land which has lots of fruit bearing trees. That's called an orchard. Then notion, N-O-T-I-O-N, notion means an idea. Offense, a wrongdoing, something that hurts another. Elves, some invisible fairies or spirits that you can't see, but they do something. Grasped, to hold on to something. Yes, suddenly it strikes me, maybe there could be another meaning also for these two words. I see him there bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. I see him there. Okay, it's easily understandable. I see him there bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top. I feel the interpretation could also mean, here is this man, the neighbor, bringing a stone, the idea that is fixed in his mind.
Stone means
something that is solid, immovable, fixed, not adaptable to any change, bringing a stone, grasped, sitting tightly, grasped firmly by the top, by the brain, as if the poet is really angry with his neighbor. I feel maybe that could also be another interpretation. In each hand. But then the moment he says in each hand, then the physical aspect comes, carrying the stone. So you see how poets can just take you on a journey from the very physical representation of something to a metaphorical. Metaphorical means beyond our sense of understanding of the real, to take you to a different level of understanding. He moves in darkness. Darkness can have so many interpretations. Darkness could mean ignorance, Darkness could just mean no light. That is absolutely no light.
Is not going in a proper manner.
Without thinking.
Without thinking. So that is all referring to the working of the mind, that darkness. Physical darkness means just no light at all, no daylight, no sunlight. That could be called as darkness. Yeah. Anything else you would like to know about the poem? Any more doubts?
I feel the poet's life
Yes.
during his age, the society was not having good neighbors.
You feel that during his age, the society didn't have good neighbors, but maybe the poet was lucky enough to have a good neighbor. Because we have that view, the conclusion of the poem is that the poet accepts his neighbor to be a good neighbor.
Maybe his idea is knowing more about the people, neighboring people
Okay,
around him,
okay,
and the mindset of them.
okay. The poet is a little curious about the mindsets of his neighbors, and maybe he would like to know more and more about the mindsets of his neighbors. After having completed the poem now in the classroom, I wish that all of you go home, read it up immediately this evening, read it once or twice if possible, and try to tell the meaning of the poem to yourselves. Or if you find a nice student at home, a younger sister or brother, or even a neighbor, talk about this poem to that person. So these are small ways of enabling you to remember the poem, the ideas in the poem, and what you have learnt and understood, to stay fixed in your own thinking, in your own memory, so that just before the exam, 1 or 2 quick readings will help you just get refreshed for the examination. Good evening to all of you.
You too, ma'am. Thank you.